गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुस्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। नमामि गौडपादं च शङ्करं श्रीसुरेश्वरं स्वामिनं सच्चिदानन्दमिन्द्रं तं ज्ञानरूपिणे। So we were discussing Satyanrute Mithuneekritya, having combined Mithuneekaranam literally means combining only. Having combined, entwined the Satyam and Anruta, this Vyavahara is found. That means Vyavahara presupposes this mixing of Atma and Anatma, taking one thing for other. So the Vyavahara is possible only due to Mithuneekarana, only due to the mixing of or exchanging of Atma and Anatma. Without that, Vyavahara is impossible. That we shall discuss later, because only Anatma cannot do Vyavahara. Only Atma cannot do Vyavahara. That Bhashyakara himself is going to say in Adhyasa Bhashya. Only Atma, if it is not mistaken for Anatma, Vyavahara is impossible. Vyavahara means a thought, an expression, and a treatment, and an action like that. So only in Chaitanyam, if Atma is purely Chaitanyam, in the Chaitanyam itself doesn't have a thought. Thought means Chaitanyam is like this, Chaitanyam is Chaitanyam. Chaitanyam doesn't have a thought about itself that I am Chaitanyam. Okay. And Chaitanyam doesn't express that I am Chaitanyam. The Chaitanyam has neither a thought about itself, nor an expression, nor an action action springing from that thought of I am consciousness. Okay. So all these three is Vyavahara. So in Shuddha Chaitanyam, no Vyavahara is possible. For a Vyavahara to take place, only Anatma mixing with Anatma is inevitable. Just like some pure gold cannot be used in certain ornaments. Pure gold being too soft cannot be used in certain ornaments because it is too soft. So to make it little what you say, strong or tough, hard, you make it little hard. They mix it with certain other elements like probably copper, I think, copper or some such other elements. You mix with gold, so it becomes little hard and can be used in a particular context. So a small percentage of other Anatma, we can say, copper and others are mixed to make it hard. Similarly, unless Anatma is mixed with it, it doesn't become an object of perception. It cannot be thought of, it cannot be expressed, it can't be used. Means no action is possible without Anatma and Atma joining. In pure Atma, no Vyavahara is possible. Only, I said at the moment, for time being, only this much is enough. More Bhashyakara himself is going to discuss. Swamiji also is going to discuss. We leave it. Now, Satyanrute Mithuneekritya Vyavaharaha. Here, we are discussing Satya and Anruta. What is Satyam? Time to time we express it. Again and again we express Satyam means reality. Satyam means existence. Reality or existence both mean the same. What exists means really exists, isn't it? Exist means what? It is real. Real means it is existing. What is not real cannot exist there. Therefore, reality and existence both are synonymous. Therefore, Satyam or Sat. In Vedanta, Sat means existence. Satyam means reality. So, Sat and Satyam both are same. Only the words words connotation slightly differs, but both of them mean existence alone. Reality or existence is one. Now here, Satyam and Anutam. When we say, what is Satyam? How do you define, how do you understand Satyam? He says, Yad Swamiji is quoting Shankaracharya's Bhashya from Taittariya. Yadrupena nishchitam sad, yat tadrupam navyabhijarati tat satyam. Regarding anything, take anything, and when you look at anything as you look at it, some opinion, some idea about it is formed, instantly formed, because mind doesn't remain. Whatever the mind sees, the intellect immediately jumps to conclusion. See, intellect is we have to learn little bit about the nature of intellect. Senses bring the perception. Percepts means what? Senses bring the data. Mind also receives it. It adds a little bit, some emotion. Sense organs bring the data. Mind adds the emotion to it. And what intellect does is, makes a judgment, makes a conclusion about it, that it is this. So whatever, see the nature of the human intellect, say, whatever data comes to us, even if you get a small portion, and a brief data, we have no patience. Human intellect has no patience to wait for more data. As you see, partially, a little bit of it, instantly it makes a conclusion. Because it is the very nature of the intellect to make a judgment, to make a conclusion. That's why in our Shastra, Buddhi means what? Nischayatmika Buddhihi. What is the nature of mind? Mind is a nature of wavering. The nature of the mind is wavering. Wavering means what? Kalpana. It does the keep on different kalpana. Sankalpa vikalpatmika. Means what? It just keep on moving from feeling to feeling. It just feels this, feels that, feels that. Feeling is too fluctuating. That's why you see, baby has a more feeling. Grown-up people have thinking. Even among the human beings, grown-up people who go by more feeling, they look like more chanchala. More feeling, more of mind and less of intellect. They look more chanchala. They have no fixed thinking, clear idea. Because mind, whatever the moody, something like a mood. So the nature of the mind is mood. It comes to one mood and goes into another mood, then another mood, then another mood. How fast it fluctuates. In olden days, they used to say, anything which is fluctuating, anything is moody. They would give an example of the climate of England. Because in our younger days, those people have learnt from Britishers. Those people have learnt from Britishers. So they would give always examples of England climate alone, London climate. Because they learnt directly from Britishers. So they say, it is so wavering, it is so fluctuating, like the climate of London, like the climate of England, they say. That climate of England was responsible for this good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and so on. Okay, all these mornings and nightings have to be good because they expected the climate to be good. It is always cloudy, I am told. It is more often cloudy and also drizzling. So it is very cold. They always love no drizzling and also no cloud. They want a clean sky. That gives them very nice feeling. See, the wishing a person a simple little non-cloudy sky for morning alone only for 2 hours or 3 hours, because before noon it goes away again. Let's say good noon, good afternoon, good before noon. So all these things there means they wish for every 2 to 3 hours. So all their wishing applies to only 2 hours alone. They're wishing good to you. We say Dirghayushman Bhava, Sukhi Bhava. Namma Indian wishing is Dirghayushman Bhava, Sukhi Bhava, Dhanyo Bhava. So, Ishvara Anugraha Praptirastu, Kalyana Praptirastu, these are the things our Indian wishings are. Indians wish something lasting, something eternal, something permanent. They don't wish for what is for 2 hours alone, 2 or 3 hours. Good morning, when you say, how long that morning lasts? 2 hours or 3 hours. It immediately shifts to before noon. Then when you say good before noon, it becomes a noon. Then immediately good afternoon and good. So their wishing is only for 2 to 3 hours. Okay. They don't wish Dirghayushman Bhava. They don't wish. Or they say happy birthday. Only one day alone should be happy. Tomorrow what happens, we don't know. Probably they wish that tomorrow let anything happen. Only today you will be happy. Tomorrow we don't mind you suffer tomorrow. But today you will be happy. So their wishings are too superficial, too small things. Okay. Anyway, so the England's climate is so fluctuating. So they would give an example, the mind. Mind is a fluctuating, waving, chapala, chanchala, because it is a mood, it is a feeling. Feeling keeps changing, mood keeps changing, it is not stable. Therefore, buddhi is nischaya. So therefore, sankalpa vikalpatmika manaha, buddhihi nischayatmika buddhihi. This is how we define, our Shastras define. Nischayatmika buddhihi, sankalpa vikalpatmikam manaha. That means these feelings, just you feel something and immediately you feel another thing. Again you feel, as the person is speaking, instantly your feelings change, just like a mood. Okay. So, human nature, human mind by nature, human intellect, in fact mind and intellect are not two. Manas, manaha, buddhihi are not two. The same thing, when it is a wavering, you call mind. When it arrives at a conclusion, you called buddhi. Both are functions of the same antakarana. Mind and buddhi are not two. They are the two different functions of the same antakarana. Okay. Different functions of the same antakarana. Okay, we leave it. Buddhi by nature, intellect by its nature, immediately makes a conclusion. As you see person, oh, he looks like that. Instantly mind concludes. Intellect concludes. Why? People say, oh, why do you jump to conclusion? It is very rarely you find people where the data is incomplete. Suppose some event has happened, some accident happened. Journalists speculate. That means without finding, verifying who did it, what happened it, people just accuse somebody. Media accuses. Opposition, of course, they are so more than willing to accuse. You don't have to request them, please accuse us. Because they will give you freely, voluntarily, without any charge. They will give you very accusation. That will keep the media eternally busy. Keep on discussing. Okay, anybody politician, when he is in opposition, he will do the same thing. We are not talking of any particular opposition. Any party in opposition will do the same thing. So freely they will accuse. Comfortably they will accuse. Clean conscience, as if they have seen it right in front of you. So sure they are when they accuse. Okay, so human intellect jumps to conclusion even if the data is incomplete, vague, obscure. Sometimes it doesn't lend any conclusion either that side or that side. Still human intellect doesn't keep quiet. It just concludes and then talks. See, you see some people, they will judge you, conclude and talk anything about you, and later you say, oh, I may be wrong. I was surprised. There was one person, he is a lecturer. He came, I was giving some Vedanta talks, and then he attended with one of his relatives. After listening to the talk, he says, oh, what is the use of all talking Vedanta? All this Brahma, Atma thing, what is the use? All those things, people should live. All this, he says, ye sab gappe karne se kya fayda? He was a Hindi man speaking. Ye gappe karne se kya fayda? All this by chatting, by gossiping. He talked Vedanta only as a gossiping. Vedantic class, I am taking some Vedanta Grantha and discussing. He says, what is the use of all this gossiping? Atma, Brahma, Jagat and all these things are all waste. Is it useful to anybody? He gave a small talk. After the end of the talk, he gave me a small talk, and then he told, oh, I may be wrong. You know you may be wrong. That means you are not sure what you are talking. But still you don't hesitate to, you don't abstain from talking. Definitely you speak. This is the human nature. No, I'm not blaming, I'm only giving an example. This is human nature. We all do the same thing. That means anything without knowing, we just conclude. Here, two things are there. One is human weakness. Another is human nature. Human nature means the nature of intellect is to judge, make a conclusion. So it won't keep quiet. Whatever you see, partially it makes a conclusion. Then another part is visible. See, human mind, human intellect has got nature of making a conclusion. Then more data comes out. Again it, what you say, reconclusion it may, remakes the conclusion. I mean, updates the conclusion. Okay? Revives, not revives. Updates, I think updates is better. It updates its conclusion. Again another data comes, again updates. But it doesn't stop judging. Why don't you wait? Let him say the whole data and conclude later. Oh, I can't do because I am intellect. God created me as an intellect. Nature of intellect is to just immediately jump to conclusion. Say, this is book. Then later you look at closely. Oh, this is not book. This is a plastic piece made in the shape of a book. Oh, it is a book. It looks like a book. Later he says, oh, it is not even plastic. It is only a picture of a book. Oh, see, in the first appearance, he jumps. It is a book. And later he updates it. Later reviews it. Let us say. He changes his view. This is the human intellect. By nature it concludes. But there is a human weakness is, sometimes you may conclude, but again wait. I concluded, but let me wait for more data. So can it be updated? Can it be modified at later stage on getting more data? Or it cannot be modified even after getting more data. If it remains same, even after observing closely more details, even after observing more details from various angles, if it remains the same, then the conclusion sustained. Okay, the conclusion becomes a sustained conclusion, not requiring any modification. So first you conclude, later verify, keep updating, then last say, oh yes, this is a final conclusion. Then somebody asks, why did you jump to conclusion first? Why didn't you wait until the whole data comes out and then make a conclusion at the end? This is the human nature, it can't stop. Because the intellect by nature concludes. Okay, but what about the human weaknesses? Human weaknesses are due to ego, due to jealousy, due to hatred, due to ego means what? You want to first make a conclusion that yes, I have understood. Yes, I know this is this. I know this person is like that. Because the ego is such that I know everything. I can make a conclusion. I know him, he is so and so. So the ego pressurizes to you make a conclusion. So therefore, if you are humble, you will not jump to conclusion. Even if you make, yes, this is what appears to be from a superficial appearance, from a first appearance, from its initial appearance, this is what it seems to be, but let me wait. So, conclusion he will do, because that is human nature. But side by side he will be humble, will be ready to change his conclusion, review and change his conclusion. So, if you are a humble person, also you will make conclusion. Conclusion will not stop, that you remember, because that is a human intellect. But you will be open enough, in spite of conclusion you will be open. Okay. In spite of conclusion you will be open to review it, change it, modify it. Or maybe some mistakes are possible. So this is what appears to me from my angle. So I am not sure of, I don't know more, but from what I know, this is what seems to be. So you keep your mind open. So here, in spite of the human nature of concluding, If you are humble enough, you can use the same intellect for a better purpose. That will not condition you, that will not create problem. So this jumping to conclusion, the reasons for jumping to conclusion, from the weaknesses I am talking. From the standpoint of human weaknesses, when you jump to conclusion, one is ego, another is jealousy, another is hatred, another is moha. All these things don't allow you to wait. Immediately I have to judge. When you have a hatred, immediately you condemn. When you like a person, oh, immediately is a great. You say, oh, he is very great, I know him, he is a very nice man. After the fellow finds out more mistakes, oh, okay, must have done it sometimes. Or you say, no, it is wrong, you have heard wrongly, he is not such a person, he will not do. And he says, I have seen myself. No, you have seen wrong, somebody told you wrong. He says, somebody told me, oh, somebody told you wrong, he is not like that. And again he says, no, you have seen wrongly. Probably you have misunderstood him, it is not right. He never does like that. I say, I have seen. Okay, if you want, he opens the cell phone and shows you. Now you know what he says? You are highly prejudiced. But I am showing you the fact. Why do you blame me personally when I am showing you the fact? See, because of the attachment, liking for a person, prejudiced, even if you show the open fact, you refuse to change your conclusion. So, the moha doesn't allow you to change your conclusion. Even if the data is shown opposite to it, see how the moha makes you one-sided conclusion, and it doesn't review, also doesn't change. Hatred also makes you, pressurizes to you, makes you to jump to the conclusion hastily, and it doesn't change also. Even if you show he is a nice man, he is not like that, you thought of him badly, but he is a very nice man, probably you misunderstood, or probably he was in a different mood, otherwise he is not, he is rarely he gets into mood, otherwise he is normally always a person without moody, always very cheerful, nice man, he is a stable personality. Many people are moody people, cannot control their moods, but he is not such a person, always very stable personality. Therefore, very rarely it might have happened, after all he was under pressure, some problem, some ill health, some severely he was suffering from some things, but otherwise he is a nice man. Even then you won't change. Because once you hate, the hatred is strong, doesn't allow you to change your conclusion. Now you see 3 examples I gave you. For wrong conclusions, hasty conclusions, and refusal to review the conclusions. One is ego, another is moha, another is dvesha, etc. You know there are many more. Irsha also, jealousy. So these are all human weaknesses. So the human nature is intellect concludes. The nature of the human mind is the emotions. Raga, dvesha, abhimana, ahankara, all these things pressurize to you to hastily conclude and also not review it, not change it, not update it, just to retain it, defend it, how it is like that alone. Even if you show the data, I denied the data, or I suppress it. I set it aside so that you will see my conclusion alone is right. I will show you the data suitable to my conclusion. I don't want you to look at the whole picture. See, this is the difference. A real man, healthy man, an educating teacher. Teacher is supposed to give you complete picture and help you to make conclusions. Don't give ready-made conclusion and impose. First you give the total picture of any situation and allow him to make his own conclusion. You only assist him to make a healthy conclusion. Don't allow him to come under any pressure of either inner raga dvesha or external pressure. Neither the external pressure nor internal pressure. Internal pressure is my own prejudices, my own raga dvesha. External pressure is all terrorist and society and government, your social conditions that your boss imposes you. Yes, somebody says you must do this alone. If you want to change, they will threaten you, they will hit you, they will do all terrorist and all. Some kind of people, motivated group, they will pressurize you. That you only publish this news, don't publish the true news. Okay. Some terrorist groups, pressure groups, they are external pressures. A person should be totally free. A person is advised to take external sannyasa. You know why? So that he will be free from external pressure. For internal pressure, he has to discover vairagyam and self-control. Okay. To grow out of internal pressure, he has to have antakarana shuddhi, vairagyam. He should be free from ragadvesha, guru seva, sadhana, karma yoga and bhakti. All that helps you to be free from internal pressure. Internal pressure means my own weaknesses of ego, raga, dvesha and all. Then external pressure is the society, social structure should be such that society should give freedom for people to make healthy conclusions. There shouldn't be any person who pressurize you unduly, doesn't help you to have a healthy understanding, balanced understanding of anything. They are all terrorists. Those religions are terroristic religions. They pressurize you through media, through terrorists, through money, bribing, or they create a social atmosphere that you have no free expression, you can't think freely, you can't express freely. That is an Asura Desha and Asura people and Asura religions. Okay. The society should give you, of course, within your condition, within your atmosphere. Sometimes people may form conclusion about a topic which I am not aware of. Supposing you see kingly administration. There are certain nuances we don't know. The military discipline, what are the information they are getting from foreign country. Certain information we don't know. Common man, we make a conclusion why government did like that, why ministry did like that. We just criticize them. But sometimes we have no data. We have no data because they are more informed, because they are in directly touch with the situation. So there we say, there we prevent the people, don't spread false conclusions without knowing the details. Therefore, here we can prevent. You don't know the details, you don't know the picture. First you go and find out, know the details and then make a conclusion. Without knowing the details, then just spreading the rumors and this is not good for you. There we can restrict, we must restrict. Because the person without knowing why spreading false rumors. So you know the picture completely and then make a conclusion and tell the people, then that is good. That is acceptable and that freedom should be given. A person should have a freedom, no pressure. If he is a healthy man and gets a healthy conclusions and takes the total picture of a situation, all angles. But if a person is a prejudiced fellow or he is under the pressure, some of the religions, they are brainwashed. Not only religion, some followers of certain ideology like communism. Two things are there. Inwardly they are prejudiced. Outside they have got their own party leaders, their own religious leaders pressurize you. You have to make only this statement. You can't criticize our own party. You can't, even if party makes mistake, you are supposed to defend our party. You can't criticize our own party, our own group, our own religion. Therefore, there is an external pressure. Internal pressure because of my own prejudice. I have prejudices. Okay. Then I also love to talk only wrongly one side. And my social leaders also pressurize me. Now you have got internal pressure, external pressure. You will only make prejudiced one side conclusion alone. Now do you see the people? Now I don't want to touch any details of any person or any group of people or group of religions. We are only talking of human nature, human weaknesses. So Vedanta or a Dharma Shastra teaches you a Brahmana or a Sannyasi or any Vedantin of any caste. Generally any person is supposed to be a healthy minded person, not prejudiced. Okay. So people should be given freedom. Freedom in two ways. Freedom from the external world, freedom from the internal world. Internal means my own personal weaknesses. Sometimes the external pressure is required if I am too prejudiced person. If I have got too much of raga, dvesha, abhimana, extremely emotional fellow, one side I am prejudiced by nature. For such fellow, external control is required. Duryodhana was overwhelmed, over pressurized by his jealousy. He fails to see the true picture. Duryodhana doesn't have any external pressure because nobody is pressurizing him to feel jealous of Pandavas. Okay. Duryodhana's, it is own personal weakness. Therefore, Vidura advised Dhritarashtra that you, Bhishma, Drona, Vidura and others have advised Dhritarashtra. He has got his own internal weaknesses. So his conclusion is not healthy. His judgments are not healthy, always prejudiced, sometimes highly harmful also. Therefore, externally control him. Don't give him freedom. Sometimes you should not give freedom to people. See, you give freedom to people to make a healthy conclusions. Think freely, collect the data from all angles and make healthy conclusions. So freedom for such people is always advisable and is good. But sometimes, if you give a freedom, no pressure, external pressure, because of your internal weaknesses, ego and jealousy and then hatred, you will always make a wrong conclusion. Now two things, either you educate him, help him to come out of those inner weaknesses, help him to come out of his jealousy, ego, ragadvesha, educate him spiritually. If you cannot educate him, control him from outside, don't give him freedom. Declare him he is unfit for making conclusions, making statements. His statements are invalid. We don't accept his statements at all. If he makes a statement and somebody publishes, the publisher will be punished because his statements are totally prejudiced, should not publish. This is what we have to say, isn't it? So, freedom should be both ways, inside and outside. If a person is too internally prejudiced, we have to educate him. That at the same, we have to educate him, and externally also should not pressurize him. Give him freedom to express. But if a person is inwardly free, he is a very unprejudiced man, open-minded person. He makes unprejudiced, without any hatred, healthy and balanced conclusions. Still, if you pressurize from outside, then it is a terroristic pressure. Okay. It is a terroristic pressure. See, now what I am talking, this much of analysis is not required for Vedanta. I am only telling you how Vedanta, people ask, how Vedanta is useful for modern life. Modern means politics. Modern means worldly life, petty, superficial, the worldly life, daily events. People ask how Vedanta is useful. Anybody who understands Vedanta knows how it is useful. But sometimes I have to explain these things because some people keep on asking again and again and again and again. So for such people I am explaining this. Okay. How Vedanta makes you a healthy person. It must make it. Otherwise, if you are also prejudiced, then what is the difference between Vedantin and non-Vedantin worldly person? Vedanta should purify you. Vedanta's absolute goal is Atma Jnanam. But the side effect is Antakarana Shuddhi. Okay. Makes you unprejudiced person, open-minded person, healthy person, a nice person, a gentleman, a very mature person. This is a avantara phala. Secondary result, this is useful for the world. People always look for secondary result and all. They don't look for main result. Main result of Vedanta is moksha, Atma Jnanam. But the secondary result. But the worldly people are too worldly minded people. They always look for secondary result alone. They ask what is the use of Vedanta. That means what is the use in the worldly context in social, political relationship. They are asking secondary result. So you ask Vedantins, what is the use of Vedanta? They get irritated. Vedanta purpose is moksha. They say, oh, it is only so selfish, personal moksha. These people talk like that. They say you are unfit for Vedanta. Go away, don't come to my classes. They talk. You talk to the traditional people. Vedanta is meant for moksha. It is not for you. You go and study Ramayana. Don't talk of Vedanta. Vedanta is meant for only moksha. They talk of. See, traditional people talk of Vedanta only for moksha. And these fellows, moksha is far away from 10 janmas. He won't understand moksha now. For him, he walks of only superficial secondary benefits alone. So, I am giving this answer for these people who talk of the secondary results alone. Secondary is also okay. It is nothing wrong about it. But it is a secondary. But the main thing is Vedanta. Moksha is the main goal of Vedanta. Okay. That de-identify Atma Anatma Adhyasa you remove. You discover the real nature of Atma. So then you become free and Moksha Swarupa. That is the real goal. And when you learn the Atma Jnanam, Atmanatma Viveka, mind has to be very, very pure, highly mature and highly pure mind. It cannot afford to have any prejudice, any weakness, any mistakes. Even your Sagunopasana, Ishta Devata, Shaiva, Vaishnava prejudice also prevents you in Vedanta. In Vedantic understanding, you have to be highly unprejudiced, highly purest man. Even your Ishta Devata, your Guru, your Grantha, your Desha, your Bhasha, your Sampradaya prejudice should not interfere. Even if you are a Shankara Sampradaya, that should not interfere and make you prejudiced man. You have respect for your Acharya, that's different, but that should not become a prejudice. Advaitin has to be very, very open-minded, highly open-minded. Otherwise you can't be Advaitin. Regarding the people, regarding the devatas, regarding the concepts, regarding the ideas, he has to be very open. Open doesn't mean that there is Indians have to be taught now. Open doesn't mean that good and bad all are same. This is another headache for Hindus. Now this is another prejudice. This is Vedanta created prejudice. Ayyo Rama. I think this our traditional people won't talk of it. Then I alone have, person like me or very few people have to talk of it. Vedanta created another prejudice. See, without seeing whether the religion is good or bad, say all religions are same. Without seeing whether what social ideology, economic ideology, all are same. This all are same buddhi is only, it is a manda buddhi. It requires a lot of dull, dull mind, incapable of seeing it requires a mind of a Nehru, in short. Because he is incapable of seeing anything good and bad. He is a second-hand fellow. I am not out of prejudice, I am criticizing. After reading his biography written by his intimate person, I don't want to take the name, you will be might be very angry. There is a person who wrote his biography, Reminiscences of Nehru. Now you read that, you will see the person has got lot of respect. He is a very nice man. He loves Nehru very much. But at the same time, openly, bluntly expresses everything of Nehru. Okay, we leave him. So Nehru's nature is incapable of understanding anything clearly. All is only borrowed from others. He repeats others' books, reads books and repeats them. You ask anything, he gets angry, gets irritated. You challenge him anything directly, he gets irritated. Anything he can talk only superficially. Okay, so Vedantins should not become Nehru. Don't think Nehru is a Vedantin. They leave it to Radhakrishnan. Radhakrishnan alone feels Nehru is a Brahmagyani Jivan Mukta. That is only Radhakrishnan alone is capable of it. And give that prejudice to Radhakrishnan. Don't worry about it. You should not praise him as a Jnani or Brahmagyani or Vedanti. Okay, you leave it to him. So, Vedantins should not become Nehrus. That means, without considering each event, each person, each ideology, each religion on its own merit, you consider, examine, find out what are the good qualities and bad qualities of each of them, whether religion, whether ideology, whether person or any concept. Without considering from a distance, see, just because it carries a name religion, all religions are same. This is another prejudice. You think that I am a Vedantin, I see Brahma in everybody. You are not seeing Brahma, you are seeing your Murkatva. You are not seeing Brahma in everything, you are only seeing Murkatva. Okay? After considering, after weighing the merits and demerits of each one, go thoroughly, detail into it. Whether religion, whether any concept or ideology, economic, political, social, each event, take it, examine it thoroughly from all angles, then form conclusion. It doesn't mean that all religions are totally bad and there is nothing in good. I don't say that. There are few good points in any points. Wherever there are good points, you must accept and we have to accept. Otherwise, you become unnecessarily prejudiced. There are good points and we have to wholeheartedly, sincerely accept it, not grudgingly. We accept wholeheartedly. But without considering, without examining the details of it, just superficially conclude that all are same, this is foolishness. Okay, sometimes it happens that you see, you cannot know all subject. If you are a history student, you have not studied science. So therefore you leave it to the scientists and doctors and depend on their conclusion. If you are a scientist and don't know the history, depend on others' conclusion regarding the history. This is natural. You may not be expert in all subjects. Therefore you go by others' conclusion. But at the same time you know that my knowledge is second hand. I am not a historian, I am a scientist, I am a doctor. So regarding the history, regarding religion, I have to depend on others' conclusion. So they gave me little bit explanation. So based upon their authority, I accept that all religions are same. But you should be open-minded, because your conclusion is a borrowed conclusion from others. If I give you more details, then you should be ready to change. Okay. If a person who has examined a given thing thoroughly, he can make his own independent conclusions, because he has examined a given piece thoroughly. But regarding other events, other situations, sometimes we have an opportunity to examine thoroughly from all angles. Sometimes we have no opportunity. We can't study. Then what happens? We depend upon a more reasonably unprejudiced person. We depend upon others. Regarding Ayodhya issue, there are certain archaeologists which are unprejudiced archaeologists. They have got very esteemed people, have respected them, like B.R. Lal and then S.R. Rao and such people. Now they made healthy conclusions, because they are not the people who get carried away by easily. Even if it is against a Hindu, if there is one piece of information they find, openly they point out, this is a mistake, we can't accept it. So they are so nicely unprejudiced people. So when such people make conclusions, generally we accept them, because even if we are not archaeologists, even if they don't study so detailed, we accept them like that. But if somebody says, don't examine other religions, don't study other religions at all, sitting from here, closing your eyes, say all religions are same. This is too much. This is a disease of Hindus, Hindu society, whole Hindu society. Of course, we understand there was some weakness. There was some weakness at one time under foreign rule. We were helpless. We were oppressed. We were tortured. We were not given any freedom. All views and opinions, ideas, conclusions are imposed on us. We are supposed to treat Islam is a great, Christianity is great. So we are helplessly accepted. Okay, we had lived such a helpless life at one time. We can understand that we had no other choice. We had to live. But now why do we have to make such conclusions? Why do we have to retain those wrong conclusions made under pressure, made under foreign rule? Why do we have to... You can observe now, you can study, read those books, study those religions, talk to them, discuss with them. Without reading them, making conclusions or retaining the old conclusions without verifying, both are wrong. Okay. Therefore, freedom should be given for a person to make healthy conclusions, collect the data without prejudice, look from all angles. So for this, we talk of two prejudices. Your modern education system talks of only external freedom. Government should not control, police should not arrest. That's all. We have a freedom to malign anybody. Okay. And there also, anybody has freedom to criticize Hinduism. But Hindus have no freedom to criticize. Hindus or non-Hindus have no freedom to criticize certain other religions. Okay. This is the kind of freedom you have. Okay. But what Vedanta talks, Vedanta means Hinduism only. Don't distinguish Vedanta from Hinduism. Vedanta means Hinduism, Hinduism means Vedanta, both are one. Okay, some people are trying to do that. Don't believe it. That's all nonsense. That again is another gulami, another slavish mindset. Okay, so Vedanta says that the bondage is from two, pressure is from two sides. Externally, government, police and certain terrorists and certain mafia groups, they monopolize it and pressurize you. And then the inner is my own raga, dvesha, abhimana, ahankara, my identification, asakti, irsha. All these things are my inner pressures. A person should be free from both. Inner purity, externally a healthy society. A good government, a dharmic society, which doesn't yield to the pressure groups. A government should give freedom to you, should be able to discuss. If the religion is wrong, it should be able to say wrong. If Ayodhya event, it says that, yes, there was a temple, it should say, don't suppress that archaeological material and go by certain pressure group of communist or some kind of terroristic group. This is too much. Okay. There, the openness, freedom should be given. Don't give freedom to the pressuring group and allow them to pressurize you. So that even if you know the data, you cannot speak. Therefore, freedom is two sides. But two, we have to see that together. Sometimes a person who doesn't have inner freedom demands external freedom. A person who is prejudiced demands external freedom. That means I have a freedom to malign Hinduism. This is my religious freedom. This is my religious freedom. We have a freedom to malign Hinduism. Okay. Externally, they demand constitution given freedom. I can malign Hinduism. Constitutional given freedom. So, he is demanding external freedom so that he has his prejudice has got a free expression. He is not purifying inwardly. He demands social, political, external freedom, but retains inner bondage. Okay. Some people have internal freedom, but externally they have no freedom. So, like Hindus' fate. Hindus have got, Hindu gurus, Hindu Vedantins, Advaitins have got good maturity. In fact, supposing they have some prejudice, some mistake, you point out. I tell you, they humbly admit it. Thankfully, they admit it. If suppose they come to have any mistake, they didn't know that. Out of prejudice, they made a statement. You point out. Simply you point out. You don't have to threaten them, frighten them, scold them, abuse them. Simply point out. They will thankfully, humbly admit it. Oh, I didn't know this thing. Oh, is it true? Oh, okay, then I change it. See, so humbly, instantly they change it. That means they don't have inner prejudices. Inwardly, mind has got vairagyam. Therefore, our gurus have to be pointed out. Inwardly, they are purer people. Our gurus, our Vedantins, our sannyasis, inwardly, I tell you, extraordinary vairagyam. I tell you, you don't find in the other religions at all. Even the so-called great saintly people don't have. Our Hindu Swamis, Gurus and Pravachanakaras, our things are highly mature people. Their vairagyam, their jnana. Oh, in these things, I thank you, you must unconditionally respect them. They are highly great people. They are highly unprejudiced people. Their vairagyam, their jnanam, their indriya nigraha, mano nigraha, nirabhimanata, freedom from jealousy, they are extraordinary qualities, and Indians alone deserve it. Indian gurus, jnanis, sannyasis, they are really great people. But certain things they are wrongly informed. There are other prejudices due to wrongly informed, or due to socially we lived through foreign rule. We lived in a foreign rule. Our earlier generations picked up under foreign rule the slavish mindset. Out of fear, they started believing all religions are same. So we retained it without properly examining it. It is not due to inner weakness. It is only due to certain social conditioning, a historical conditioning. They picked up that all religions are same. It is a historical conditioning. It is a social conditioning, social slavery Indian society has gone through. All our good people, great people, jnanis, gurus also are carrying that all religions are same. I have done the Jesus sadhana, I had a darshan of Jesus. I had done a Islamic sadhana, I had a darshan of Pravadi, and then he came and merged into me. These are all prejudices picked up from others, not due to inner weakness. Inwardly, they are all very pure people, great people. They are atyanta viraktas, atyanta mahatmas, atyanta great jnanis. There is no inner weakness. Inwardly, they are purest people. But these weaknesses are due to socially, economically, outside society, politically, socially, historically. External reasons. These external reasons also control, condition people. Unconsciously, innocently conditioned people. These are all innocent weaknesses. Unconscious, innocent weaknesses. Unconscious, innocent prejudices we picked up. Okay? External pressure, internal pressure. External pressure is two sides. One is the historical social conditioning. Another is government laws. Government is unable to implement laws impartially. Hindus, it doesn't give freedom. For certain others, it gives freedom. Government is a weak, helpless, useless governments. That means the media also can talk only one side. They can only talk against Hindus, but they can't point out the mistakes of others. The media is one-sided, under pressure. The government is also under pressure because they want to vote alone. So these are all pressurized people themselves. They are under the pressures of terrorists. Government and media is under the threat of pressurists. Like Bakasura's pressure, the king yielded to another. Do you know that? I think I told you in one of my pravasana. Bakasura, where Pandavas were living incognito, without knowing anybody, in the guise of Brahmana, they were living in that, what is that name of that town? I forgot the town. They were living in that kingdom. After escaping from that Aragina Mane, lac house, they were living in that town. That is there they heard about Draupadi Swayamvara. From there they set out. There they heard that one Bakasura was there. He was a ferocious fellow, very powerful fellow. The king, local king, unable to handle him, he surrendered to that king and asked the people, you yourself handle it. Therefore, what the people helplessly did is, in each village and each family, every day one boy, one person of the house, and one cart full of, cart means bullock cart, one bullock cart full of rice, and also one mahisha. Mahisha means one what do you say? Emme in Kannada. Mahisha means one buffalo. One buffalo, one cart full of rice, cooked rice, and also one human being for eating, because he was a cannibal, Asura. So these three have to be given from each family one person. That way they have distributed, probably I think in all his town, probably for 1 year or 2 years, I don't know. If his taluka, the king's kingdom contains around 700 houses, then each house should give one person. You may get it in 2 years or 5 years, that turn, or maybe 5 years probably, I don't know. So each house should give when the turn comes to you. Then Bhima went, Ekachakra Nagara, yeah, somebody, oh thanks a lot, Ekachakra Nagara. See, that means the king himself was weak. King is unable to raise a good army to be able to fight that Asura. Our governments and our media is also under the pressure of this terrorist. Government is also living like Ekachakra Nagara. We need a Pandavas-like person. So we have to send our own people, because the terrorists are pressurizing the media, pressurizing the education system. They only tell lies about our history. Our government also, for sake of votes, also yields to them. Okay, we have got Bakasuras living around India and the world. Society is helpless. Government is yielding to them. We only God alone is our hope. God should send somebody like Bhima. Because we are helpless, we don't know what to do. Okay. Do you see our government has any strength? They easily yield to these Asuras. It doesn't give you an impartial freedom to all. Freedom means only one-side freedom. So we are talking of the external freedom. Okay, this external freedom, we need government. Okay, government has to be strong and media has to be strong. Okay, that. But there is one more external freedom, that is a historical conditioning. Our history books write wrongly. Historical conditioning, we have gone through a foreign rule for a long time. We were wrongly fed with wrong news and wrong ideas that all religions are same. Now is the time to review all that. Still we retain that old collective psychology. Because this is carried from the history. For the last 2 centuries, we picked up a wrong history, wrong thinking. Still this is a subconscious mind of the whole Hindu society. So one is government and media, police and government is not giving protection to express freely. You can't write a book and you can't give a talk. People tell me, Swamiji, you are talking. Once when I criticized in my talk, in this live talk, 2 days, I think 1 week I went to Bangalore. Generally I go to the Bangalore talks, to the Karyalaya. 1 week there were no talks. Some people telephoned to me, Swamiji, there were no talks. We were afraid that you were arrested for criticizing Islam and Christianity. They told Swamiji, something happened to you, we were worried. So, one is the police and government protection, freedom. Freedom is only one side. Okay, that you need a strong government, or we need a Bhima-like person, so that government should be liberated. We need a Bhima to liberate our government. Okay, that we have to wait and we have to do upasana, bhakti, puja, so that God will send a more powerful person. Okay, that we shall do. But there is another conditioning, two conditionings I told. One is our own personal ragadvesha. That our Guru Swamis are excellent in that they have got Vairagyam. I tell you, you go and talk to them. I tell you, there is nobody like our great Jnanis, Sannyasis, our ashramas, our acharyas are so puja. I tell you, the so-called Pope also doesn't deserve to touch his feet. They are so great, our Jnanis, our Swamis, our Gurus are really great people. You see them, so simple, so humble people, so unprejudiced people. So their Antakarana Shuddhi is very great. Our government, of course, is not helping us because they themselves are helpless, under Bakasura's pressure. Terrorist groups pressure. And also vote bank, that is okay. Then the third one which I am talking, that historically we are fed with wrong, that we have got a freedom to change. I am criticizing that. Okay. The wrong history we have fed with. Subconsciously there is a collective wrong history. We can study those religions we have not studied. We have to study their history we have not studied. We have to study the true history, true religion, true concept of their religions, their ideas, their ideologies. This is where we have a freedom. Some books are available now, printed books are available. Why not we study? Why do we remain simply so humbly, innocently keep on propagating those prejudices? Why innocently propagating those prejudices? What this is in our hand, we can change now. This, if we have a freedom here, why not we study? I am only criticizing this. I think now you have understood my place. I think when I criticize, people get offended. But to explain it, I need time. How much time I need? Because I am deviating already a lot from Vedanta. I am already deviating a lot. But see, I am helpless. Hindu society needs certain things. Therefore, sometimes I take license. I know it is directly as a pure Vedanta, I am not supposed to do. But as a human beings, we need it. Therefore, I take little bit this also. Okay. So, whenever I criticize, people get offended. Ayyo Rama. I have no disrespect to anybody. I just want to point out the facts where we are getting stuck. Okay. Now, where are we? Deviated from intellect, human nature, human weaknesses. Okay. Intellect, the very nature of the intellect is jumping to conclusion. So that is human nature, so you can't stop it. We have to adjust to the human nature and use it. Human nature itself is not a problem. But the human weaknesses, raga, dvesha, abhimana, ahankara, that is a problem. That we can purify. So these, the pressurizing, the controls are two sides. So one is external, another is internal. I am just summarizing, so the time is up. I summarize and close it. Okay. Pressures are two sides. One is the inner pressures, our own raga, dvesha, abhimana, ahankara, prejudices, asakti, moha, kama, krodadi. So by antakarana shuddhi, karma, yoga, bhakti, we can purify ourselves. We can be at least as far as possible, relatively as much as possible, we can be free. And we can go on getting free ourselves, freeing ourselves by more and more you do sadhana, more and more vairagya, we'll be freeing more and more ourselves. We become freer and freer. So the external pressures are two. One is the present government and present police and law and order and the society. There are certain pressure groups. They threaten even the media. They threaten even us. So certain social groups, certain religious groups, certain political groups pressure. Certain government out of weakness and media also don't protect. Police also doesn't protect. These are external. In the external, the second one is certain wrong history, wrong books, wrong history we have inherited, wrong conditioning we have inherited. This we can do. We can read books, we can study history, we can study other religions. This is what Hindu society is badly missing. Hindu society is not doing. This is what I am criticizing. All gurus and non-gurus, gurus and shishyas, our acharyas and our ordinary people, everybody combined, we have to study this. In this area, we have to decondition ourselves from the wrong history, wrong understanding of our religions. And regarding the other is government and etc., we have to pick up. Our government has to become strong. Our law has to become strong. There should be some changes in our law. And our police has to be strengthened. Media has to become independent media. Media has become a gulami foreign media. It is taking bribes from foreigners, and there is no single media, no channel, no newspaper. Everybody is a gulami anti-Hindu. We have to free our media. We have to free our government. That is a different issue. I leave it to the society. But my topic is the inner freedom due to the conditioning. Okay. Now you understand. 3 levels of freedom. Then natural intellect's weakness can be overcome from your broader heart. The same intellect makes a judgment. You can review it. What is that? You can review it. The intellect won't interfere. Because it is a nature to judge. Okay, let it judge, but again you correct it. Again review it, again update it. Then intellect's weakness doesn't bother. But our inner weaknesses bother. 3 weaknesses I told. Okay, now I concluded. Remaining I'll discuss tomorrow. Okay. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat.